Hello everyone, it's Hayley Marie here. Today I'm going to be walking you through painting a cute pink cafe design using watercolours. I'll also be showing you how to fix mistakes and add highlights using white gouache paint. So to begin with, let's grab an A5 piece of watercolour paper, a HB pencil for sketching and a rubber for any mistakes. I'm going to be making this design up today, so I have a really quick sketch at my side that I've drawn out before starting. I have a bit of tissue and the palette ready for when we are going to get painting. But for now, as I'll be using a ruler to help with the spacing of our coffee shop, I'll be putting the palette to the side out of the way. In the top left corner, I've put up our finished painting for your own reference as we draw and paint our piece. As it's a building sketch, using the ruler will make it easier to map out where certain parts of the coffee shop will be, like the windows, doors and the sign. So let's start with marking out 3 centimeters from the bottom of the page. That will be our outside floor area and the base of the wall of the coffee shop. Then from there, let me just do a quick light sketch to see where about the windows and door will go. Above that, mark out about 0.5 centimetre from the top and draw a faint line across, and then 1.5 centimetres below that another line. That will be where our sign will be. Then our striped pink canopy. Measuring 5.5 centimetres down from the top edge of our paper. Remember not to press too hard as we may need to erase sections as we go. Then draw a wavy edged trim. Now, grabbing the ruler, just making some of these lines a bit more precise. And actually, I've decided to measure 7 centimetres from the outside line into the inner section of the window. And for this bit, you can decide on the design of your window. I've gone with a panel down the middle and 2 separate sections at the top and bottom. And then let's add in those stripes on the canopy following the same angle. I'm actually going to make that go out a little bit more at the side to really make the effect that the canopy is coming towards us. So onto our table out the front, I wanted a round table with 2 chairs. The chairs going at an angle rather than side view. To draw the chairs at an angle, you have to slant the lines as I'm doing here, and then we can add our chair and table legs. Going to scribble on a little plant and then a coffee and a latte. Drawing a little croissant here, and then for the other side a little iced bun. And a menu sign in the window. Okay, so onto our door. I wanted a similar style door to the window, so have a panel at the bottom of the door. Something didn't look right to me, and as I'm not following anything but my own design, sometimes along the way you might want to change bits as you go. I thought the door would look a bit better higher up, so I'm going to redraw it up to that same line as the panel in the windows. Still with that arched look over the top. And for a last little detail, I'm going to add a cinnamon bun on the glass panel of the door for a cute feature. For the coffee shop name, I've just called it the Pink Café. The writing style will change later, so no need to write that in at the moment. I'm just going to map out where the bricks will be going later. And finally, some greenery and flowers up the sides of the cafe and above the door where the arch is. Now we are ready for our paints. I have my vintage pastels watercolour palette, which I will be using as our base colours for the cafe. Starting with the colour suede, let's do a light wash across the canopy under where the greenery will be. Then with the slightly darker stone grey for some shading under the canopy across the window, only a light wash to begin with to start our base. With the golden glow, I'll be painting the table and set of chairs. And then the apple blossom pink on the door and the cafe sign. The terracotta for the brick wall. And then some suede grey for the street floor. Whilst we wait for that to dry, I'm going to grab my permanent rose from my Winsor & Newton palette to make a nice bright pink mix with the apple blossom. Painting in those stripes and then the door frame too. Also doing a little outline around the door to make that area stand out. And of course also the window frames. Just a quick art tip, if you've made a bit of a mistake with the watercolour, you can grab some of your tissue and dab at the page. It acts as a little eraser, removing the watercolour away from the page. But remember, this technique only works if the paint is still wet. For the last part of our base layer, with the terracotta, paint the cinnamon bun on the door and the croissant and cake on the table, and the sign with the golden glow. Right, that's our first layer all done. Now it's time to grab some green. I'm going to be using the Decadent Pies Key Lime Green and also the pumpkin shade for our chair and table set. With our sage green from our pastel range and then our key lime green, we can make a nice shade ready for the greenery on our page. Paint lightly along the areas that you sketched previously. And with some more pigment, using a dabbing action to place what will look like a loose wash of leaves down the wall, and just keep adding different amounts of paint to give the illusion of shaded leaves. Now with the pumpkin shade, let's outline the chairs, table and the pastries. Looking at the reference, you can see that the chairs look a lot different. Now I didn't like how they turned out, so I play around with them later. If you want to wait to paint the chairs until that final stage, then that's okay. Or you can follow along with me to then see how I overcome my own mistake so that you can know a little tip for the future. It's all about trusting the process and hopefully giving you more confidence to play around with your own paintings without having to feel you need to give up once you don't like something. It will be a great way to learn how to save your paintings from any mistakes or changes you want to make, but it's completely up to you. And then just going to make a brown out of the pumpkin and a little tiny bit of black, just so I can outline the cinnamon bun, croissant and iced bun, and also paint in the coffees. With the dark rose, let's outline the door frames whilst adding a bit of shading down the top of the frame under the plants and add a bit more detail in the wooden panel. Now this is the part where you can decide to wait for the chair or follow along. I paint lines down the back of each one and paint the base of the chair. I feel that we are ready to erase our pencil lines now. It's important to make sure that the painting is completely dry before attempting to erase anything. Okay, so with our apple blossom, paint a shaded area on the sign, giving it some more depth. With the suede, paint a line across the canopy and then as an outline to the wavy edging. Again painting some shading to give that section some more depth too. Followed by suede to shade areas of the white stripes, especially under the leaves as I'm doing here. Doing a similar dabbing motion to how we painted the leaves previously. With the dark rose, let's outline the window frames. and paint some more stone grey on the tops of the windows and door directly under the canopy. Also on the brick wall. With the brick wall, I actually wanted to make the bricks look uneven, so I'm going to paint the edges of each brick using the suede grey and the terracotta as a contrast at different areas to add a little interest. Making sure to get every single area on either side of the shop and also the top. And as you can see, I've been using the terracotta and the suede colours. With that same colour, we can outline the menu on the window. Okay, going back to our greenery, getting the green on our brush and again adding some leaves with shaded sections. Really building up the leaf layers. Dabbing that deeper green on top of the textured areas really adds even more depth to the greenery. A very simple way to give the impression of leaves. Let's not forget the plant pot, using the soft lilac of our pastel colours, followed by the breezy blue for the coffee mug, and I decided on a white mug for the latte, so I have grabbed some grey to draw a simple outline, also an outline for the plates. So we are now going to bring in our white gouache. For those of you who aren't familiar with the gouache paints, they are opaque, which means unlike when using watercolour, you can paint over any mistakes that you find, or you can make changes to your painting without messing it up. For example, the chair here I found to be too wide, so just by using some of the white gouache, I'm able to paint over that area. I like to mix my gouache with my watercolours as well to blend in the different sections, making sure the two mediums don't stand out too much against each other. I find it really can make it look flawless. Another purpose for the gouache is to make highlighted areas or to add white to the painting, which wouldn't be able to do if using the white watercolour. So for our cinnamon bun, I'm going to add some icing on the top. Down the bottom panel of the door, adding a cute letterbox detail. I'm just going to go around the outline of the doors and the window frames again, just to make that a little bit darker and a bit more prominent. And then using the pumpkin shade, I'm going to draw in a little rectangle for the details on the letterbox and a round door handle. Going back to our gouache, I'm going to be dotting in some flowers, just little delicate dots, spacing them out subtly across all of the leaves. And maybe with our suede grey, painting some of the bricks on the wall, not too much darker than they already are, but again just adding some texture to that wall. Moving on to our street floor, I've decided to paint in some vertical shaped tiles, and this is another section that our white gouache will come in handy. So to paint in some vertical lines for how wide you want the tiles, and just as our brick pattern, separate them apart sporadically, but this time going the opposite way, vertical rather than horizontal, and just making sure we do that all the way across. Now using the suede grey watercolour, we're going to use a light wash to paint up to the white gouache lines. This gives it a nice contrast against the white gouache, making each tile stand out. Blending the paint from the edge to the centre. Going to grab our pumpkin shade to outline part of the bottom of the chair and the table. Adding a little bit more paint to the tabletop around the items for shadow. And then for the base of the chair, painting in a tight check design to resemble a rattan woven style wooden chair. Outlining the plant pot with the black, and I thought another little plant next to that would also look quite nice. I'm going to mix some of the watercolours with the gouache paint to make it opaque, so that it covers the watercolour below. The apple blossom pink for the pot, and then a short plant with a green. Also outlining the blue coffee mug, and once the new painted plant is dry, outlining that one too. With the chairs, throughout the painting I wasn't sure on how I wanted them to look, so this is the part where I decided to change them slightly. I matched the backs of the chairs with the base of the chair, the rattan woven look. Then decide that I didn't really like how bold and blocked the chairs looked. So to make them look more delicate, I grabbed my white gouache and almost erased the middle sections of the backs of the chairs. Once dry, I could then repaint the woven look on the base of the chair, and I can also paint in the window frame within the gap of the chair. I personally think this looks a lot better and much more delicate for the style painting. Now it's time to paint in our cafe sign, door signage and the window menu. I've designed a flowy style handwriting for the cafe. You can draw your own style in or copy mine. With the stone grey, I'll paint over the pencil using my size 2 brush, and then same for the door signage. And painting in the word menu with just a couple of squiggles underneath in 2 separate lines to keep that part nice and easy. Just adding in some dots for decor around the border as well. With our brown, I'm going to paint in some speckles on our iced cinnamon bun. We are now on our last final details. I wanted to paint a faint light wash of a cake counter and plant in the cafe. I thought it would be a nice little addition for extra cute detailing. Painting in the cakes, putting some icing on them, and then adding in some texture to the plant. I also thought adding a little bit of greenery across the window frame would look quite nice too. When looking back from the painting, I noticed that there needed to be a little bit more shading details. So going to add all this in now to make the painting pop. So with our black, I'm going to dot in some darker areas under the leaves on the canopy and under the door greenery. Some more shadow at the top of the window frame and a little bit more on the lines on the canopy. If you put a little too much on the paper, you can lift some away with your brush. Adding a little bit at the base of the door and directly under the table. Under the letterbox and on the menu. I thought a really thin line detail around the cinnamon bun, and then lastly some darker shading on the frilled edging of the canopy. Now I felt like this may have been finished, but when looking at the chairs I had made them a little bit too dark for the rest of the painting, so I thought adding some gouache mixed with pumpkin onto the chairs would lighten them up and also give them a nice highlight. This is what's so great about gouache, and I would really recommend buying a white gouache to have within all of your art materials. It's amazing for people who are starting with watercolours or to add highlights at the end of your piece, and can even help fix areas of your painting. I really think the gouache helped transform this piece into something special. I hope that you enjoyed drawing this pink cafe all the way to the finished painted piece and that you learned some tips and tricks along the way too. If you did have fun today, please hit like and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on future tutorials. If you loved the art piece I made today and would like your own print, I will be sharing it over on my Patreon along with a line drawing if you didn't feel confident in drawing the cafe from scratch. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, happy painting!